Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Everything is Bad New Fangled Motion Picture Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Newfangled Motion Picture Show. As is tradition, I am your host, Niall.
And I'm Nolan.
And we're going to be doing a review on The Joker. Or just Joker, right?
Just Joker.
Just Joker. So, before we get into that, a couple of housekeeping things. We will do a spoiler-free review. And then, when we're done with that, we'll give you a spoiler warning, and we'll go more in depth into it after that. And man, is there a bit to unpack with this movie.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, this was an excellent movie. I think this is one of the best movies that Warner Brothers in general has put out in a while.
At least since Mad Max.
Yeah. And it's definitely the best, DC movie I've seen since,
Dark Knight?
Dark Knight, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
They're making a Sandman show.
Yeah, I'm excited
that could be cool.
It could be
cool. But, so the thing about DC is, they have two interesting characters. Batman and the Joker.
Well, okay. That's a bit hyperbole. I think they have a bunch of interesting characters. They have some good IPs, but they just don't know what to do with them.
Yeah. They have interesting concepts, but they have poorly written stories.
At least as far as their live action stuff goes.
Yeah.
Their animation is generally a lot better.
Yep. So, this movie, in case you don't know what it is, and if you don't, I mean, how? Follows Joaquin Phoenix, who is a great actor. And he's playing the role of a failure of a stand-up comedian and clown, Arthur Fleck. He's living with his mother, taking care of his sick mother. And yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot the system's beating him down, people are beating him down, physically and, emotionally and mentally.
And he's not all there mentally.
To begin with.
We know right at the beginning that he had recently come out of some mental health care facility.
Right.
So...
and it's just it follows... I'm not going to say this is a perfect movie, because there's a couple of things that I would have changed about it that I think would have made it much better.
We'll get to that in the spoiler
part, but this was an excellent movie. I think they did a really good job with casting, because other than Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro, there's no one in this that's a particularly huge actor. And so it's much easier to engross yourself in that world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not sitting there going oh, hey, that's that guy.
Yeah, and Robert De Niro plays a guy who is himself famous, in the story, so that works out well for his character. But yeah, this movie is dark and brutal and addresses some really dark themes. I have been seeing some people complaining that it doesn't really address mental health issues in a
positive way.
Well, it's that it doesn't portray them. I mean, he's crazy, but what is his condition? It's really vague about it.
Yeah, we don't know what his condition is. I don't think that's that important.
No,
myself, that we need to know specifically what his mental disorders are, and it seems to be multiple disorders.
And frankly, I think it works out better not knowing, because it emphasizes that the system just really doesn't give a crap about him.
Yeah, nobody seems to be of any... Even his therapist doesn't seem to really care about helping him that much.
Yep.
And so... Yeah, and it's just... Everything beating down on this guy that is already not stable. And it turns him into the Joker.
Yeah, and kind of inadvertently, like he just sort of gets swept up in this commotion, this whole thing, and we'll get more into that
Yeah, it's
in the
not like he
spoilers.
sets out to do this.
Yeah, like this isn't the clown prince of crime, you know. This is a man angry with society and taking it out on society. And the ending is very dark.
They almost, not quite. I'm not going to say they succeed, and I don't know that they're actually trying to, but they almost make him sympathetic.
Yeah, if not sympathetic, you definitely understand.
Right, you understand where he's coming from, and he's not just this like out of nowhere. Who's this Joker guy like in The Dark Knight, where you don't know where he came from? It's just this crazy guy.
I mean, he might as well be an eldritch being at that point.
Yeah, he might as well just Pennywise manifested in Gotham City.
Yeah, like shows up, causes a ruckus.
Right.
And I've seen some people like DC and Warner Brothers have said that this is a separate movie. It's not part of the DC cinematic universe. Basically they're at a point where they're not giving up on the DCU, but they're giving up on having this one massive interconnected universe the way the MCU is. And if they have a script they like for a movie, they're not necessarily going to try to make it work with the rest of the DCU. They're going to just make the movie. And so they've said that this movie doesn't tie in with the rest of the DCU, but I've definitely seen some people trying to figure out ways where it could.
And maybe later they could retcon that in.
Like, the idea of the Joker being a mantle sort of thing. Where, yeah, maybe the Joker in Suicide Squad isn't the original Joker, but, maybe he became obsessed with this guy or something, and he himself was already unstable. Yeah. And just a lot of, like, real mental gymnastics like that.
It doesn't need to be part of anything.
No, this is just a really great story. It could be an origin story for the Joker. It doesn't have to be the origin story for the Joker.
It does somewhat follow the original origin story, as I understand it, of the Joker. The very first origin story was that he was a failed comedian, and that just sort of drove him batty, being such a failure.
Drove him batty?
Yep.
Did you really go there?
Yeah.
But it's... And I mean, that was at a time when they understood mental illness even less.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just he's crazy. So
yeah.
But yeah, I do recommend seeing this movie. It seems to be doing well, despite the fact that there was like 5 people other than us in our theater. I mean, it was a matinee, but
I think a lot of that has to do with that theater.
Yeah,
we've talked about it before. This theater, there's hardly ever anyone there. We don't know how it stays open.
I like going to it though, because there's never anyone there.
Yeah, the popcorn's good. The hot dogs are terrible. Hot dog buns are terrible. I should say
they're not quite hard, so they don't throw them out. But as a result, they're chewy and like have the consistency of jerky. I'm not even joking. They're gross.
Yeah. The hot dogs themselves are fine. They're Nathan's hot dogs.
We usually eat at the Nathan's in the food court next door. But anyway, so yeah,
and all their signage is broken, so they tell you
you're in theater such and such, even though it says How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, it's been that long since these signs have been broken. By the way, they're these digital signs and they're broken. They all say the wrong movie on the marquees.
Yep. So anyway, but I do recommend seeing this movie. It's not something that's like you have to see it in theater, because there's nothing about it that's like, I mean, it's in IMAX, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, there's not any like big grand sweeping shots. It's all a very close-in movie. Most of it takes place in small spaces.
It's like
small apartments,
like
and stuff.
His apartment, the hallway outside his apartment,
the changing room for where he works,
and like the nightclub that he attempts to be, to do a stand-up act in.
Most of the movies in small spaces. There's no need subways and stuff like that, buses.
Yeah, like there's no special effects really. I mean, there's probably some set extensions and stuff in there, but there's not like visual effects. There's no one with superpowers flying around, no explosions or anything.
Yeah, there's no Batman.
Yep. But yeah, I do recommend you see this movie. 100% do not take children to see this movie.
Yeah, they'd probably find it boring actually.
Yeah.
And wouldn't understand
Because it is kind of a slow burn. Which
not like Ad Astra was.
Not like Ad Astra, but for a comic book movie,
yeah,
it's definitely a slow burn, and I actually like that they took that route.
People are comparing it a lot to Taxi Driver, and I think that's an apt comparison.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I've seen Fight Club.
Yeah, just because of the mental health, that angle of it.
Yep, and the society beating you down sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in that vein.
I could see this becoming like a real cult classic movie.
Yeah, I definitely see this being the kind of thing that people watch in the same way they watch Fight Club.
Where it I think it'll transcend the notion that it is a comic book movie. It's about the origins of the Joker, because it doesn't even need to be the Joker necessarily. It could be, this story could fit just any person where society drives them into being, a murderous psychopath.
Right.
But yeah, it's a really good movie. Though.
It's got a 9 out of 10 on IMDb. It definitely deserves that, I think. Joaquin Phoenix is phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah.
Looks so gross.
He lost a ton of weight for it. And it's not, my understanding is it's not even like his decision. Like the director wanted him to lose the weight. He would have just done it like in his normal weight.
I think it was a good call.
Yeah, I agree. It adds to the sickliness of him. We know he's sick on the inside, but to make it look like that on the outside as well.
And it really emphasizes the bad state he's living in too.
Yeah, because if he was at a healthy weight, So I think we can get into the spoiler.
Yeah, henceforth there'll be spoilers.
Yeah.
So, this movie has the biggest Alfred Pennyworth of any Alfred Pennyworth.
I know, right? I saw that guy. I'm like, whoa, that's got to be Alfred, but dang.
Well, at first I thought he was just a rando bodyguard, and then I saw in the credits that someone was credited as Alfred, and I was like, that could only have been that guy that came and got Bruce from the gate, right?
Yeah.
And he's big. He's broad.
Are they going with that? They must be going with that former MI6 Alfred, right?
Yeah, must be. So yeah, the one thing I would change about this movie. So starts off in the first 15 minutes of the show or the movie, he sits down to watch this talk show with his mom.
Yeah, it's a late night talk show,
and he has this
hosted by Robert De Niro.
Right, and he has this whole scenario play out in his head, and it's very obvious that it's all in his head about how he shouts, "Oh, I love you."
Well, he goes to the show and sits in the audience.
Yeah, and he shouts, "I love you, Murray," and Murray's like, "Oh, that's great. Stand up. Tell me about yourself." And he's like, "Oh, I take care of my mother, and my mom says I was put on this earth to make people smile." And he's like, "Oh, that's beautiful. Come down here." And he's like, he tells Arthur "Oh, I wish I could have a son just like you." And it's clearly he's obsessed with this guy, and this scenario is clearly in his head.
Yeah, well, and it becomes very obvious because it fades back to him watching the show.
Right.
Because at first, he's watching it, then it fades into him. You're like, oh, did he later go to the show? And you're like, nah, this is strange. I think this is fake. Then it confirms it when it fades back to him watching the show, and you're like, yeah, that was all in his head.
Yep.
So we've established that he has these fantasies go off in his head.
So then, later on in the movie, he has this. He meets this woman who lives in the same hallway as him in this rundown apartment building in Gotham, which is conveniently having a
Garbage
strike at around the same time as the New York sanitation worker strike.
Right.
So he just bumps into this woman in the elevator, this woman and her child in the elevator, and the next day he stalks her around, and then like later on she confronts him about it, and it was like, were you following me today? And he says...
He admits yes.
And
she works at a bank.
Yeah, she works at a bank. She said, I was hoping you'd come in and rob the place. And he makes some joke about, well, I have a gun. I could swing by tomorrow. And that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, and so she's like, oh, that's funny. And so he's actually charming with her a little bit. And so...
And you're like, that didn't go the direction I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, but then you're like... Is this in his head too? But then you continue to see her in his life, like
right. She's with him when his mom is in the hospital. He goes on a date with her, where he
takes her to a
comedy club, and he does an act. He does a stand-up act, and it starts off a little rough because of his condition where he laughs.
I think it's an actual condition, like a form of Tourette's or something.
Yeah, where he laughs basically when he's like nervous or uncomfortable.
And it's an uncontrolled laugh. Like he can't, it's really loud and he can't stop himself, and he's like choking on this laugh.
And Joaquin Phoenix does a really great job because he's laughing, but it looks like he's in pain.
Like it looks like he's crying and laughing simultaneously.
And it's really well done.
Yeah, and it's that Joker like ha ha laugh, you know?
Yeah, it's like that real like bizarre, insane laugh. And so
but it looks totally like he's trying to stop it from happening and he can't. It's really well done.
And so he like later on he's in the hospital. His mom's sick, and so she has an episode or something, gets taken to the hospital. And he's in her room, and Murray is on the talk show. And Murray plays a clip of his stand-up act. How someone got a video clip of a stand-up act in the early 1980s, I don't know. But unimportant. Anyway, he plays it and he mocks it. And in very much like that Jay Leno sort of way, we're like, hey, have you seen this?
Yeah.
And you realize, oh, that stand-up act didn't go as well as it was made to seem. That's interesting.
But you're thinking, well, because it cuts to the woman in the audience watching him, and she's laughing, so it's like, well, maybe she gets his humor, but... And then maybe we're only seeing the beginning of it.
Right.
And it looks bad at first, but maybe it starts to get better, so you're not quite sure. You're like, okay.
Yeah, and so then
maybe later, they're just taken out of context.
Right. And so later in the movie, after he finds out that his mom is also crazy, has some like megalomania or like narcissistic tendencies, and is obsessed with Thomas Wayne, he finds out that he's not the illegitimate son of Thomas Wayne.
Oh yeah, she believed that he was the illegitimate son of Thomas.
Turns out he was actually adopted, was abused as a child by her abusive boyfriend, which is probably what resulted in him being in that mental institution sometime before the events of the movie. And he murders her.
Yeah. And
he's, kind of freaking out, and he just walks into the woman's apartment.
I thought he went in there before he murdered her.
That might have been. I don't remember the order. The order's not really that important. But
anyway, he goes into her apartment.
Yeah, and he's freaking out about the whole thing, about his mom lying to him his whole life, and finding out she's also crazy, and she's not even really his mother. And so he just walks into her apartment, which I thought was weird. I was like, I refuse to believe that someone lives in that part of that city, doesn't lock their front door. But whatever. So he goes in, and he's just like sitting on her couch, and she walks in and freaks out, and she's like, your name's Arthur, right? You live down the hall? Should I call someone for you? Is your mother home? And you realize, oh,
She doesn't know him.
She doesn't know him. And then they ruin it by having a flashback.
They're like, oh, by the way, we think you're an idiot and you haven't figured this out.
Right. And I was like, oh man, that was such a cool reveal. Like not a reveal even, because you're already suspecting it, but like a cool confirmation.
And like, in case you're an idiot.
And then they just ruin it. And I would have just left that flashback out.
Yeah, because they do these flashbacks where they show the scene from where he thought happened, and then they show it without her.
Yeah.
And it's like Fight Club, where they do that. And they're like, oh, you kind of needed it a little bit in Fight Club.
It was much less obvious
in Fight Club. That was the confirmation. Right. In this, they already gave you the confirmation, and then they beat you over the head with it.
Yeah.
With this other thing. And it's like, I didn't need that. I figured as soon as she was like, who are you? Oh, your name's Arthur, right?
Yeah, as soon as she said obviously, that, it was like, oh, okay, I get what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I so wish they just hadn't done the flashback. Without that flashback, I would have zero complaints about this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was really well done otherwise. So, and then, I mean...
I wonder if they, like, test screened the movie without it, and people were like, what happened? I don't get it.
I hear that, you know, when you have something like that in a movie where it's like, why did they do this? It was so much better this other way. And the studio's like, well, it tested poorly with test audiences. And it's always like, who do you find just the most idiotic test audiences?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
Although I have seen some issues where the movie's made better. I'm not going to get into it, but I've seen like some instances where like, oh, that ending is way better. Oh, like in Deep Blue Sea, the woman who dies at the end, she was originally going to live, and then there was like this, they try to shoehorn like this romantic scene, like where she kisses the main dude at the end, and they're like, well, first of all, there was never anything romantic between the two in the movie, and she's responsible for the sharks.
Right. So the audience isn't happy with her surviving.
Right. So they changed that and made her sacrifice herself at the end and die, and that's a better ending. But anyway, in this instance, yeah, they fucked it up. Yeah.
But other than that, this was a great movie. Joaquin Phoenix is a phenomenal actor. This is probably my second favorite Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Your favorite being what, Sisters Brothers?
Definitely.
I liked this better than Sisters Brothers. I'm not saying I didn't like Sisters Brothers. I like Sisters Brothers.
Yeah, I think I like Westerns better than you, though. Mm. Also, a movie that gets Victorian-era weaponry correct just really tickles me.
Mm.
I mean, just Walk the Line, too, if you need more example of Joaquin Phoenix being a phenomenal actor. So, and like I said, having the only other, like, really well-known actor in the movie be the famous talk show host, I think was a really great decision from the casting point of view.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was what they were going for, or if they was like, well, these are our two most important characters, and everyone else get whoever.
Yeah. Dude, like, I knew it was coming.
Him killing Murray?
Him killing Murray, but
oh man,
it was still like
it still made you go, holy shit! Like out loud, everyone just had some.
It was so sudden. Like they knew it was coming, but it was still sudden.
Well, and because since he was like practicing, you made it seem like he was going to kill himself on set. And
yeah,
it was always like this drawn out, like because he was practicing before he went on the show,
like,
and it was always this like drawn out thing, and he just draws the gun and shoots the dude in the face.
Yeah, because it was always like walk out, oh here, knock knock, who's there, and he like he sticks the gun under his chin and pulls the trigger, and there's no bullets, so he's and just dies like haha, and there's this whole like running thing throughout the movie with him like pretending to shoot himself in the head and stuff, and you're like, oh, is he gonna do that? Well, I know he's not, because the Joker survives.
Right.
We know that, and I'm pretty certain he's gonna kill Murray, but it's still sudden. It just comes out of left field,
and especially because there's like all this like build up, and you know that he talks about how because he admits to killing the three guys on the subway, which sparked all this riots in the streets and stuff, and Murray's asking him like, "Oh, you think that's funny? You think it's a joke to you?" And he's like, "Yeah, that was the punchline to my joke. and he asks Murray, like, you want to hear another joke? And you're like, oh, well, if that murder was a joke to him, this next murder is going to be a joke to him too, right?
Yeah.
And like the him killing himself was supposed to be the punchline of his knock knock joke or whatever, and it's like, yeah, you like know it's coming, but man,
he actually has this funny line that he didn't get a laugh out of within the contents of the movie. Did not get a laugh. And I was like, it was kind of funny. He's sitting there because he's invited onto the Murray's show because of this clip that Murray keeps playing of him bombing at this comedy club, and he says, "Why don't you tell us a joke?" And he's like, "Okay," and he pulls out this notebook. He writes his jokes down in this notebook, and he was like, "Oh, he's got a joke book, okay?" And he's like, he flips through. He's like, "Here's one, knock knock." And we're like, "You got to read that?" It's like, well, I want to get it right.
Yeah, and that was pretty funny.
That was funny.
There was something else that was really funny when Murray was showing his clips on the show earlier in the movie. The second clip, the joke is about like, oh, when I was a kid and I told people I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, they would laugh at me. And he says, well, no one's laughing now. And I thought that was really funny. I laughed at that joke.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
But it's just, that ending, man, is oof.
Yeah.
And he gets up and he does a little dance, turns himself into the cops. The cop car gets rammed. I don't think they knew who was in the car when they rammed him. I think it was just part of the riot and they just saw a cop car driving down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And they
look in the back. It's like, oh, it's the guy.
It's the guy.
Yeah, so when he murders these two, they didn't deserve to be murdered, but they deserved punishment for what they were doing. They were harassing a woman on the subway, and then they start harassing him, and they start beating him up.
You see, as far as I'm concerned, the two guys he shot in self-defense, that's perfectly understandable.
But the guy he chased down...
The guy he chased down, shot in the leg, and then killed on the stairs, that was the point where you're like, okay, buddy.
Yeah. So anyway, then the city's divided. There's all the lower class people who are like, oh, he's a hero. These assholes are the reason why we're living like this. And an eyewitness saw what they described as a guy in a clown mask.
Right.
So, because he works as a clown and he was just coming off of work, right in the subway home, and he was wearing clown makeup, not a mask, but that sort of thing happens. And so it starts this movement of people wearing clown masks and protesting, Wall Street types. And so it leads to riots. And then when he shoots Murray on live television, it starts like a whole major riot in the city.
Yep. But yeah, this was a great movie. Do highly recommend it. But you have anything else to say about it?
Not really. No. I mean, we could maybe talk about it all night.
Yeah, there's a lot to pick apart in this movie, but
yeah, just go see it.
So next week, we've got Gemini Man. Oh, look at that Metascore! Finally has a Metascore. It is real bad. Ooh, that's real bad. And I believe the following weekend is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and Zombieland Double Tap, and Jojo Rabbit, and The Lighthouse. And Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Oh my god.
Oh, we're gonna have to see multiple movies in one day for that. Or maybe we go to a Thursday night showing of something.
Well, we have to check to see if they're all playing.
Yeah, because The Lighthouse, Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and Jojo Rabbit we're probably all going to have fairly limited releases.
So,
especially The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
But it's next weekend, and that week following is going to be a busy week for our reviews. And then the following week, let's see, I believe is nothing. So we might bump one or two of those movies back a week. I mean, it's not nothing, just nothing we're particularly interested in. But first weekend in November is Terminator Dark Fate, which looks pretty cool, I think. I think, if nothing else, it looks like a good action movie, and it's directed by Tim Miller. So, I mean, that'd be alright.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Then we got Arctic Dogs.
No, we don't. Sure don't. Don't have that. Motherless Brooklyn looks pretty cool. It's that Edward Norton movie.
Oh yeah.
Starring and directed by, and also starring Bruce Willis. And I'm just like,
how'd they get a movie made?
I was gonna say, like, that would just be. I feel like that would be the most frustrating movie to.
Too much ego on one.
Yeah.
One set.
But it does look like an interesting movie. Let's see. Midway looks rough, but I think our old man's probably gonna want to see that. So, Arctic Dogs again, huh? We got another Playmobil going on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ford versus Ferrari looks good. The Good Liar looks good. But I mean, with Helen Mirren, Andy and McKellen in a movie, how could it possibly be bad?
Right.
Let's see. Yeah, around Thanksgiving, we got Frozen 2, which don't really care about, but of course we're going to see it because it is what it is. It's going to be a big cultural thing. If you want to understand all the memes that are inevitably going to come out of it.
Yeah.
21 Bridges looks pretty cool. Knives Out looks cool. Yeah, we really start after this. We have like one more week where there's not like anything in particular, like in October, and then we really get into the holiday movie season. Did they bump Playmobil back?
Maybe. Oh God, that Metascore.
25 Metascore. Oh boy.
I knew it was bad.
I kind of want to see it more now. Oh man, that looks real bad. Jumanji 2. Of course, we're also gonna see Star Wars. What about Cats, Nolan? It's coming out competing against Star Wars, man. They must be real confident in Cats.
Yeah.
1917 looks really cool. I'm really excited for that movie too. So that's what we got coming up through the end of the year. It's gonna, after this, it starts getting busy again. We're through the end of summer, like between summer and fall doldrums of movies. I think we went like a month without seeing a movie, almost. Except I think there might have been a Riff Tracks in there.
I don't remember. It starts to blur together.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get back into the swing of things with seeing a movie like every week, or in some cases 5 movies, apparently. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, hit that bell button, whatever that's called. Check out our other Joaquin Phoenix movie review of The Sisters Brothers, which is a phenomenal movie as well. And also, yeah, I mean, check out our other reviews of DC stuff. It's over there.
None of them is highly reviewed as this one.
Nope. Did we review Suicide Squad?
Yes.
I can't remember, man. I forget, like, stuff starts to blur together, and I don't remember.
Suicide Squad is a story of lost potential.
Yep. We'll see what James Gunn can do with it. This Birds of Prey movie coming out looks like something that should be releasing on their online streaming platform. Like, it looks like a decent movie for an online streaming platform, but it doesn't look like a well-done movie. And it looks so... Yeah, it just... There's a lot of things a lot of problems already that I foresee with that movie. Like the fact that none of the characters are distinguishable except for Harley Quinn. Like, they're all, like, in the same color palette. And that's a bad way to start things off when they're, by and large, a bunch of characters few people really know about.
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard of Black Canary. I've never read Black Canary. I have no idea what her capabilities even are.
She's a martial arts expert, and she can screech a sonic scream that hurts.
I would have gone by Banshee.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's already an X-Men name.
Probably?
But
There's
anyway,
so many.
yeah. So, yeah, that movie's already just... And it sucks, too, because I like Margot Robbie. I like looking at Margot Robbie, too.
Yeah.
I mean, her in those shorts was the only redeeming... Well, one of two redeeming parts of Suicide Squad. The other one being the first act.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we'll definitely review Birds of Prey when that comes out in it's like April of 2020, something like that. And we're probably not going to review it well. Already not predisposed to it very well, so... you got anything to add to that, Nolan?
Nah.
Nah? Alright, cool. Go see Joker.
Yeah.
Bye.
So long.
Toodles.